Excellencies, dear participants, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and thank you for joining our webinar. We are going to start now. So I'm Diane Sainzoga from UNCTAD Regional Office for Africa. I'm the Chief of the Regional Office for Africa. So we are very happy to welcome you all to this webinar. But before we start, I just want to share a few housekeeping rules. So number one, please keep your microphones muted. And second, this session is going to be in English. However, if you have any comment or question in French, so please feel free to put it in the chat box. So our today's session is going to focus on the World Investment Report 2025, and the report offers critical insight into global and regional investment trends with important implications for Africa. So while the global FDI declines overall, Africa experienced a remarkable increase of 75% in FDI's flows, and the report identifies the digital economy as a bright spot, growing at 12% annually. So however, there are some key sectors that are experiencing a decrease, which means the renewable energy, sanitation, and agri-food. So the webinar brings together policymakers, government officials, academia, private sector, and many other stakeholders interested in investment trend in Africa. So without taking too long, please allow me to invite Mr. Richard, the head of research section at the UN Trade and Development, for the opening remarks. So over to you, Richard, for the opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Diane. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this meeting. And Diane, thank you very much for convening it for us. This is a very important occasion for us to disseminate the findings of our annual World Investment Report. Most of you will be familiar with our report, published for the past 30 plus years. Every year, our World Investment Report documents the trends in foreign direct investment flows, foreign direct investment projects, greenfield projects, and project finance. It also documents trends in investment policies. And every year, of course, we have a specific theme that we address in the report. And this year's theme is international investment in the digital economy. So it's a very important occasion for us because, of course, we don't just want to publish all of our data and all of our findings, but we also want to make sure that we disseminate these findings and that we discuss with you the policy recommendations stemming from all of these findings and documented in our report. So I will keep this very short. I just want to hand over in a moment to my colleague, Ms. Amelia Santos Paulino, who will take you through the content of the report and each of its sections. I just would like to say one more thing. Diane already mentioned that we have a very positive trend this year in Africa. And we are documenting that further in other work that we do in UNCTAD. And we find it very important to not just provide a global picture, but to deep dive on specific regions, and especially those regions and groups of countries that need investment most. And we are now working, for example, on a report dedicated to the COMESA region, and we are available to also discuss reports for other regions and sub-regions that may be interested in working on specific deep dives on investment trends and investment policy trends. With that, without further ado, I will pass the floor to my colleague, or I'm instructed to pass the floor back to you, Diane, as the moderator for this session. So I'm happy to do so, and I wish you a very successful meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Richard, for the opening remarks and for highlighting the importance of this report, and also for introducing some of the interventions from UNCTAD. So before going into the presentation of the report itself, let us look at a country-specific case where we will be having an introductory remarks from Mr. Simon Maji, the CEO of Ghana Investment Promotion Center. So he's going to share investment promotion effort and the broader investment policy framework of Ghana. And he has experience in fostering trade and investment across the continent. So over to you, sir. Mr. Simon, the floor is yours. Can you hear me? Simon, you are muted. Simon was connected. Okay, he's
All
here.
right, thank you.
Over to you.
Yes, like I said, the place is a little noisy, so please pardon me. But I would like to start off by saying that I extend my gratitude to UNCTAD for its steadfast work in producing this flagship report, which year after year continues to provide us with invaluable insights into the global and regional investment dynamics. This year's report comes at a critical moment as the world finds itself navigating the complex effects of overlapping crises, from geopolitical fragmentation and escalating trade tensions to economic volatility and shifting industrial policies. Foreign direct investment flows, as the report outlines, remains deeply fragmented, with capital increasingly concentrated in a few large middle-income countries. Unfortunately, this means that many developing countries, including those of us in the global south, continue to face significant hurdles in attracting the levels of investment needed to accelerate our own development. Yet, amidst these sobering realities, the report also shines a light on areas of growth and resilience. One such area is the digital economy, which has emerged as a powerful engine of global investment. Now, having given this brief introduction, I'll turn to what we are doing in Ghana. So, in our effort to stay up to date with current trends and to meet the emerging needs of investors and inviting them over to our country, we are in the process of coming up with a new investment law for our country, which will look at areas of the minimum capital requirements and what we can do about those ones, look at incentives for sustainable investments in our country, as well as move rapidly to institutionalize the tools and mechanisms for handling investor grievances, as well as building a stronger aftercare division. We're also in the process using that law to build a national investment registry, which will help us to easily track which areas are attracting investment and what they are doing to attract investment. We've been building up to the issue of investment facilitation. And so currently, as we speak, we have been able to cut down on the number of days that it takes businesses to register with our center to a 24-hour window. So if you come to us within the 24 hours, we should be able to register with the Ghana Investment Promotion Center. We've also significantly worked on cutting down registrations for technology transfer. What happens is that it takes averagely 2 years to go through the process to get technology transfer registered with the center. That has been significantly reduced to 4 weeks by laying out certain guidelines to help investors. So once they follow the guidelines, the registration for technology transfer becomes reduces to as little as 4 weeks. And if they want to renew, they could go as far as up to 8 weeks. And that, we think, are some of the ways and things that we are doing to actually improve the investment environment in our country and beyond. The other component is we are working on what we call the investment opportunity mapping, which is to help us map out all the existing opportunities across the 261 districts of our country, which could be found in 16 regions of the country. So we could be able to have a data-driven investment promotion where we'll be able to point investors out to the opportunities that are in our country. But having laid out all of this, I would also want to emphasize that the digital economy, which is one of the fastest growing sectors of the global economy, is really contributing a lot to Africa's development. It is been noted that between 2020 to 2024, developing countries received about 531 billion in greenfield digital investment. However, this investment is unevenly distributed, with almost 80% just going to 10 countries. In Africa, Nigeria and Egypt has emerged as the main destination for such investment. In Ghana, we've realized that capacity is one of the reasons why we don't have much growth in the digital economy. So the government of Ghana has introduced what is called the 1 million coders. This is to train 1 million Ghanaian youth in digital skills in AI, robotics, to prepare them for the job market, especially in the areas of business processing, outsourcing, which is growing rapidly in our country. I must say that I completely associate myself with this year's report, which is international investment in the digital economy. And I am hoping that this will lead to transformative work in many African countries, bridging the gap in infrastructure, facilitating technology transfer, boosting productivity, creating jobs, and expanding market access. I also believe that this represents an opportunity for growth and a pathway for inclusive and sustainable development. Indeed, Africa has begun to witness some encouraging trends. About 80% of the least developed countries, LDCs, many of which are in Africa, have adopted a national digital strategy. In my country of Ghana, we have even adopted an AI strategy and ways of carrying out promoting that AI strategy to attract investment in that sector. Not too long ago, Google launched the AI Village in Ghana, all in response to our ambition to drive investment into the AI. I also understand that regional initiatives such as the Smart Africa Alliance are advancing public-private partnerships in the digital innovation, as well as the AFCFTA protocol on digital trade, which I believe is one of the transformative tools for enhancing digital trade on the continent. With these few remarks from mine, I would like to hand over to you, Madam Chair, and to thank you, my colleagues, for this wonderful report and for this discussion. And I wish all of us a fruitful deliberation. So thank you very much, and over to you.
Thank you so much, CEO Simon, for the introductory remarks and for highlighting the experience of Ghana. Without taking long, I would like to go directly into the presentation of the report. And please allow me to invite Mrs. Ameria Santos Porino, the Chief Investment Issues Section at UNCTAD, to make the presentation of the report. Over to you, Ameria. The floor is yours.
Many thanks, Diane. I join my colleague and director Richard Baldwin in thanking you and the team for the organization of this meeting. I also thank the distinguished speakers, participants for joining us today. We had an excellent in-road introduction to my presentation. I thank Mr. Madie, I want to pronounce your name correctly, for your excellent practical introduction about the efforts done by Ghana. We sustain in the report that there are, despite challenges, there are bright spots. There are countries that are doing and taking the right steps towards not only investment in the digital economy, but all the necessary investment to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. I'm also pleased that you mentioned the transformative tools, regional tools, especially through the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. This is an issue that we highlight in the report, and I will come back to it. So without taking more time, let me just say that I will highlight global investment trends because they are important to understand the regional dynamics. And then I will zoom in into some issues, key issues that are important As Mr. Madi said, the importance of policies, investment facilitation tools. I will touch briefly on sustainable finance trends. We have a special spot in what is the Sustainable Development Agenda, and then I will finalize with the findings of the theme chapter, which is international investment in the digital economy. So let me start with the global landscape of foreign direct investment, the global investment trends. And here you will see the four major forms of foreign direct investment that we analyze in the World Investment Report. We have foreign direct investment, which is financial flows as measured in the balance of payments. Then we have financial transactions defined as cross-border mergers and acquisitions. And then we have, which is a unique feature of UNCTAD work, international investment in or international project finance, which is crucial to finance, to fund large infrastructure projects. And then we have greenfield investment, which is crucial for productivity, productive investment, manufacturing investment. So we can see here a very challenging picture, but also some positive trends. Let me start with global FDI. We show in the report that on average, it increased by 4% to 1.5 trillion. But this figure needs nuancing. This headline number was driven mostly by volatile financial transactions through several European economies, which have very high level of conduit flows. These are what we call investment transit economies. If we exclude these economies, and if we can see in the first figure, the global FDI declined by 11%. So this is an issue that is very challenging, because if the headline number declines by 11%, it means that the sectoral investment are going to be affected. So as our director mentioned, and as I will show in the report, the outlook for international investment in 2025 is negative. At the start of the year, modest growth was still possible. It seemed possible given as I said, bright spot sectors like the digital economy and so on. But geopolitical tensions, rising trade tensions have led to downward revisions in key foreign direct investment indicators, especially global GDP growth, capital formation, trade, exchange rate, currency stability, and investors' sentiment. So all these have had an impact, which has led to the downward revision of foreign direct investment. So this emerging geopolitical landscape is expected to drive further sectoral and geographical reallocation of FDI. And in this context, some countries and regions stand to lose, others stand to win, especially through restructuring of supply chains and through restructuring of key sectors. But let me turn to, this is very fascinating, I could spend more time, but let me turn to project level international investment trend. So here we show international project finance as well in the figure. And as I mentioned, IPF is crucial for infrastructure investment. And unfortunately, it was 26% lower following already a sharp decline in 2023. So this is mostly, this is, as I mentioned, IPF is key to finance large infrastructure projects. And because of the complexity, financial complexity, and the big financial envelopes that we are talking about, these are affected by uncertainty over exchange rates and uncertainty over interest rates, which has affected financing conditions, especially for the more vulnerable countries. This downturn in international project finance has important implications for global development and global financing efforts. I will show in a minute that this has also special implications for financing the Sustainable Development Goals. And in the report, and also taking you back to the report in 2023, UNCTAD has been advocated for the role of multilateral development banks, regional development banks, export credit agencies in trying to address this financing bottleneck that developing countries are facing in critical infrastructure. So to finalize with this slide, let me turn into greenfield investment, which, as I said before, is critical for productive sectors, manufacturing sectors. As I show in IPF and general foreign direct investment, there is overall high uncertainty, and however, greenfield sectors have shown resilience, which is good news. I mean, we have challenge in the big infrastructure, but productivity investment into productive sectors has shown resilience. We show that the value of greenfield projects announced in industrial sectors remain high at 1.3 trillion, the second highest level on record. The announcements, that is the project announcements, was particularly important in what we define as supply chain intensive industries. And so this is, again, is important, and something that we argue in the report is that over the past 2 years, global firms have already anticipated the need to rebalance their investment and production locations. And unfortunately, as I said, there have been some winners. Some of this investment has been relocated mostly to Southeast Asia, Eastern Europe, and Central America. They have been the main beneficiaries. Finally, I'll briefly mention, because we have it here, is the value of cross-border mergers and acquisitions. These figures mostly affect FDI flows in developed countries. These are mostly financial transactions between headquarters firms, but even these transactions remain well below the average of the last decade. Domestic deals and near market acquisitions are becoming more important in the face of growing political risk and regulatory scrutiny. Okay, so now let me turn to regional trends, and this is where the Africa picture starts to emerge. I will not spend much time here because I want to move into the themes of the report and more discussion in Africa. So here the picture varies across developed and developing economies, and even within regions. Developed countries, the trend was strongly affected by financial transactions, the M&As that I just showed, but also the geopolitical tensions and uncertainty. FDI to developing countries were stable, but here, as Diane mentioned and Richard mentioned, and the keynote speaker also mentioned, there were sizable increases in Africa, and also, let me add, in Southeast Asia. Unfortunately, Asia, which is usually the manufacturing hub, the FDI hub of the world, FDI fell by 12% in East Asia, mainly because of the decrease in China, and in South America, which is also the hub for investment in renewables and big manufacturing. So this affected the average for developing countries. And I will come back to the Africa in numbers in a minute. So here, another contribution of our report is looking not only at industries, but also since 2019, we have been reporting what is investment needs and investment gaps on sustainable development goals related sector. Starting with the sectoral trends, what we call industries, they show lower investment in infrastructure sectors, and with a 9% decline in the number of projects, mostly driven by the downturn in international project finance. Here we can see that digital infrastructure sector was the exception, with a staggering number in semiconductors and semiconductors and the digital economy sectors. So this is good news. Later I will come back to the challenges that the keynote speaker mentioned about concentration regionally and by sector. Turning to the left of the graph, which is investment in the SDG sectors, international investment in sectors relevant for the Sustainable Development Goals in developing countries, the investment declined again in 2024. Investment linked to the SDGs dropped by 35% in infrastructure, 31% in renewable, and 30% in water and sanitation, and in agri-food system, which is crucial for food security. Only the health sector experienced growth, but please, let's take this with a pinch of salt. These are very few projects of big values on the infrastructure of health, on hospitals and related infrastructure. This is not the quality or access to health, and these are very, very skewed, limited projects. So now looking at this is now the picture by regions, and unfortunately the headline here is that SDG related investment in LDCs has dropped dramatically. That is, investment is not going where it's the most needed. Here we show the gray bar is the increase in health across sectors. And as I said, this is mostly driven by few infrastructure related projects. Just a comment on Africa, on the African continent. Despite growing demand, the continent still imports more than 70% of its medicine. And FDI penetration in the sector remains very limited, accounting for less than 5% of greenfield investment projects in pharmaceutical manufacturing over the past 2 decades. And if we account the number of projects, it will be less than 100. So we have a bright spot here, we have a growth, but we need to be careful about how we take these numbers because there are challenges, especially when it comes to access to medicine and critical medicine. So this is zoom in, this is an estimation, the numbers for Africa of what is the investment in sustainable development goal sectors. And unfortunately, in the continent, investment in SDG related goals have generally declined both in numbers and values. The largest absolute drop in project value was in renewable energy, which is a change in the trend, because after 2015 and after the Paris Agreement, we saw an uptick of investment in the sustainable development goals related, and especially in renewable energy. Also, we saw a decrease in the number of projects. The value of projects in other relevant sectors was also limited, and we see here mixed results. Again, international participation, international investment in projects related to health and education shows signs of recovery, with investment value increasing by 23%. So this dynamics points to an urgent need to strengthen regional capital mobilization frameworks, and this is something that we discuss in the report. In the different chapters where it's relevant, that is policy and the digital economy chapter, we argue that the advancing the objectives of the AFCFTA and fostering regional investment platforms could help reverse this trend and build a more integrated investment landscape, a more resilient investment landscape across the continent. So now let me take some minutes, and Diane, please signal me when I have 5 minutes left. Let me turn to the international investment trends in Africa. So let me zoom in into what were those big trends that I show by aggregated regions. Let me zoom in into the continent for the benefit of our audience. So, as it was mentioned in the introduction, in 2024, foreign direct investment to Africa increased by 75%, and a staggering figure, reaching $97 billion, and is the highest record level recorded in recent years. But this is mostly driven and skewed by a landmark, by a large international project finance deal in urban development in Egypt. So this single project drove this big figure, and this is something that we have to keep in mind. But even if we exclude this landmark project, the inflows into Africa still increased by 12% to about 62 billion, a sign that a momentum is building more broadly in the continent. Also, let me point something in this figure, that is the bubbles that we see with the line. This is showing how the share of FDI into Africa, the FDI into Africa as a share in the world has increased, going from around 3.7% in 2014, doubling to 6.4 almost in 2024. So this is a good sign. The share, even though still intra-regional investment and trade remains low, but the share of FDI, Africa FDI in the world has almost doubled in the last 10 years. So now here we are looking at other important trends, and we show here who are the leaders. So here we see that North Africa has emerged as the primary driver of the continent's performance in terms of investment, recording over almost a 300% increase in FDI inflows to 51 billion. So this exceptional growth, and again, you will hear me repeating this, is driven by the single mega project in Egypt. In Egypt, is worth noting that in addition to the single mega project, I mean, and mostly driven by it, inflows rose nearly fivefold to 47 billion, representing 47% of total flows to Africa. So FDI into Egypt represented almost 50% of flows to Africa. Other countries performed well, like Tunisia, where investment rose by 21%, and also FDI Morocco increased by 55%, signaling better prospects for broader countries, not only one single economy. We also show the decline in other regions like West Africa. For example, we explain in the report that in Nigeria, the largest economy in the region, there was unfortunately the downturn in Nigeria was a major contributor to the downturn in the region and in the sub-region. In Central Africa, we saw an increase by 13%. East Africa, also we saw positive developments, mostly driven by higher investment in Ethiopia, Uganda, and Tanzania. In that,
Ameria, sorry, you have 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay, so let me run because I have a lot to say still. So South Africa, we show the also important developments, mostly driven by large activity in Mozambique and South Africa. If you allow me, let me jump directly to the theme chapter of the report, because I think this is where we have. I will invite you to read the report because we have a very good policy chapter where the issues that were raised in the introduction, like what type of tools, we show that policy making in developing countries is increasing, that developing countries are leading more proactive, positive policies towards investment, but there are still some important issues to be addressed, and I will focus a little bit more on policy issues on the digital economy, if you allow me. So let me jump. I'm moving my slide here to the digital economy investment. So. In the introduction, we already explained that the digital economy is growing fast, that it has become a major driving force in the global economic growth, and it goes from all activities that rely on digital technology, from the creation to the consumption of digital and digitally enabled goods and services. In terms of policy, the the United Nations adopted the Global Digital Compact in September 2024, committing to close the digital divide. So in addition to UNCTAD, other agencies like International Telecommunication Unit and different agencies are tasked to address the issue of the growing divide and investment gap. So here quickly, I will walk quickly through this slide. We show in the report, we do an update of the original top 100 multinationals in the digital space that we produced in 2017. And we show now important shifts. For example, here we show, this is only focusing on technology, but in the report we show that technology multinationals, together with companies in extractive industries, represent the largest sectors when compared to other industries, and follow this closely by automotives and pharmaceuticals and light industries. But I will invite you to look at the first chapter of the report, and also in chapter 4 we present the new ranking of digital M&Es. But a key issue of this growth that I discussed earlier in my presentation, yes, greenfield investment in the digital economy has become an important source for developing countries. Between 2020 and 2024, developing economies attracted 531 billion in greenfield investment in the digital economy. However, 80% of this investment is concentrated in just 10 economies. 7 of them are in Asia. So many will say this is an Asia story. We try to go beyond the top 10, trying to analyze other pockets of excellence. And if we go beyond this 80% countries attracting the 80%, Egypt, Nigeria, and Ghana are emerging as leading economies in the region, in the digital investment landscape. Despite challenges, a positive note in the report and a message that we present in the report is that a bright spot is the growing investment among developing countries. That is, South-South investment in the digital economy is growing. In this landscape, Asian economies, including China, Taiwan, province of China, and Singapore have become major sources of investment, not only for the region, but also for other developing countries. And these countries combined account for 27% of total greenfield investment in the digital economy. And this, if you compare, this is slightly lower than the share of the United States, which is the lead investor in the digital economy. So this is a good news that we see more resources flowing between developing countries. It's not only North-South investment. So in addition to the regional concentration, a concern that we address analytically in the report is the divide across digital sectors. So here in this figure, first we see that data centers and fintech have attracted growing investment, although, and we discussed that extensively in the report, least developed countries and economies in Africa remain underserved. Between 2020 and 2024, Africa has seen increasing investment in data center, which is a good news. We heard all the efforts and positive notes from Ghana earlier on. The continent has attracted approximately 5 billion in investment in data centers, accounting for around 9% of all data center investment in developing countries. So let's say that Africa on average attracts 10% of investment in data centers in developing economies. Also, we show that digital services saw a rapid growth, increasing sixfold from 6 billion to 37 billion in the period analyzed. However, a key issue is that ICT infrastructure remains underfunded across developing countries, not only Africa. We show here that ICT infrastructure reached only 50 billion globally in 2024, far below the estimated 62 billion needed annually to close the connectivity divide. So we are seeing here a big investment gap in this landscape. I invite you again to read the report and then see all the nuances that we present. Just quickly here, again, this is another picture echoing the issue of concentration. Greenfield investment in digital equipment manufacturing is also heavily concentrated, and still Asia stands out as the primary hub, attracting around 190 billion, and still Africa and Latin America remain marginal players in this domain. Let me take 1 minute, and I am borrowing 1 minute from Diane on this, because this is an important issue that we address in the report. So we show that there is an infrastructure gap, investment gap. We see that there is regional concentration, there is divide across regions. But one issue is that we know that these are financially complicated processes and projects. And most developing countries, especially least developed countries, have not yet benefited from the upward trend in foreign direct investment in the digital economy. So we try to see how we can help, because investors cannot do it alone. Foreign investors cannot come into especially risky markets or countries that face risky macroeconomic conditions or political conditions. And we know that governments cannot do it alone. So what we argue, based on a very thorough analysis in the report, is that because of various barriers, such as the high investment risk and cost of capital, investment is still lacking. So we call for multilateral development banks and international financial institutions to help expanding connectivity gap in developing countries. And they can help by offering direct loans and grants, mobilizing private capital, and working with local and regional development banks, export credit agencies, national development banks, and so on. But this is an important issue because if we compare the digital economy with the renewable energy sector, the participation of development finance institutions is still very limited. So here there is an opportunity to scale up capital and to scale support. And this is an important message of the report. I will take 1 minute here because this is an important issue and it was already alluded to, is that despite significant investment needs, many developing countries still apply restrictions to FDI in core digital infrastructure. We have a very detailed analysis of this policy landscape in the report. I invite you to read it. Also, the importance of the regional digital agenda, which is anchored in the African Union Digital Transformation Strategy, which aims to build an inclusive and integrated regional digital economy. I think it's important to keep this in mind for national policymakers and also the link to the AEF-CFTA protocol. In the report, we also look at treaties and regulations. I don't have time to go through it, but one issue that we mention and analyze in the report is that these treaties that we are looking at here regulate areas crucial to the digital economy, such as paperless business, data flows, cybersecurity, and responsible digital investment. But most of the development provisions remain non-binding, which affects developing country partners. So I'll invite you to read this. I will share my presentation later on, so all the participants can read in detail what we presented here. So going forward, and just my last minute, Diane, I promise, we present a comprehensive investment policy with an investment policy approach on how to leverage international investment in the digital economy. Here we focus on 4 elements. One is shaping the foundations through robust digital strategies and an effective governance framework, stimulating investment by fostering openness to foreign direct investment, and enhancing facilitation and promotion mechanism. We heard from Ghana how important this is, and I will add to this the aftercare. And importantly, an area where UNCTAD has a leadership is in harnessing international investment agreement by strengthening development-oriented provisions and to improve the participation in developing countries in international rule-making for the digital economy. I'll stop here. Thank you so much for your patience. This is a fascinating region to study, and I look forward to the panel discussion and questions for the floor. Thank you so much, Diane. Over to you.
Yes, so thank you so much, Ameria, for this very insightful presentation. Indeed, the reports highlight important investment trends globally and specifically in Africa. So now let us again go into a country-specific case. So today, we are together with Michelle Umurungi, the Chief Investment Officer from Rwanda Development Board. Michelle, can you hear me before I introduce my question? I just want to check if you are here and you can hear me. Hello, Michelle.
Good morning, Dan. Sorry, I wasn't able to unmute myself, but yes, I can hear you.
Okay, good.
Can you see me?
We can't see you, but we can't see you, but we can hear you.
Try again.
Okay, good. Super.
Oh,
Yeah, so thank you so much, Michelle, for joining this webinar. Very quickly, I have a question for you, and you will be sharing Rwanda's experience. So how is Rwanda positioning itself to attract investment in the digital economy, especially in line with the trend highlighted in the report? So over to you, Michelle. You are muted, I think. We can't hear you.
there we go. I think the host has
good.
to allow you to unmute yourself. First, a good morning to everyone. I wanted to extend our heartfelt gratitude to UNCTAD and to you specifically, Diane, for having us in this webinar this morning. So it's a pleasure for me to be speaking with everybody and specifically sharing our experience within the RDB, the Rwanda Development Board. And maybe for everybody to have context about RDB, the Rwanda Development Board is the investment promotion agency of Rwanda, where we look to attract foreign direct investments into the country. And when it comes to this report, I would say that Rwanda is positioning itself to attract digital economy investments by combining a few targeted efforts. The first one is really in the infrastructure development. We have a strong policy direction when it comes to digital economy and a really proactive outreach to regional and Pan-African digital companies. And what we're happy to see that these efforts are also reinforced, or echo some of the points made in the reports that highlight that project values in digital sectors have really doubled globally, despite, especially FDI and digital infrastructure, despite the global economic uncertainties and the decline in FDI. So from a policy perspective, I'll give a few examples. We have the Rwanda Smart Rwanda Master Plan that has been rolling out since 2020 to now 2025. And this is really a national strategy that prioritizes digital public service delivery, e-governance, digital literacy, and really sector digitization, like sectors like health, education, agriculture. And the reason from a policy perspective, we have this in place is that because we're committed to building a digitally inclusive economy. If you look to attract or to become a hub for digital investments, it's important that we are inclusive. We are an inclusive economy, which appeals to both commercial but also impact investors. And another key role that we play from the policy perspective is the role we play in the Smart Africa Alliance, which really promotes cross-border digital integration and innovation-friendly regulation across the continent. For us to become the hub for digital investments, we know that we have to have harmonized regulation across the board. And so this is really an important role for us so that we can become a hub for digital investment. We also have the Center for Fourth Industrial Revolution, C4IR in Rwanda, and this is really focusing on AI, on machine learning and data governance. We've hosted the first AI summit on the continent a few months ago, and this is to reinforce Rwanda's intent to be really a rule shaper when it comes to digital investments on the continent. And that's just from the policy perspective. Now, from an FDI perspective, RDB specifically plays a key role in creating an enabling environment for foreign direct investments. And this is by offering specific incentives, fiscal incentives. We have preferential corporate income tax for ICT and financial services. Earlier, I noted that the speaker mentioned fintech. This is truly a sector that we were prioritizing. We see the potential it has in terms of investments, not just in Rwanda, but on the continent. And so these incentives apply specifically to ICT or digital investments. When it comes to, for example, if you wanted to relocate your HQ from somewhere else to Rwanda, we can get you incentives that are very appealing. You can get tax holidays for about 7 years, where you're eligible where possible. And this is really to make sure that we're attracting the right players in this space. We also have the Kigali Innovation City, which is a flagship project aimed at creating a tech ecosystem that hosts technology companies, universities, incubators, and R&D centers. And this project is supported through a PPP, public-private partnership involving the government, Africa 50, and private investors. And here is for us to really position ourselves as a regional and global digital FDI hub and nurture homegrown innovations. So that's from the FDI perspective and from an investment perspective. I think this, for me, I'm happy to look at some of the insights that were shared by the report, because it really underscores the idea that digital economies is really driving foreign direct investments, and we're happy to be at the center of it and to be playing a key role into bringing even more of this digital investments on the continent. So I'll pause here.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Michelle, for sharing the case of Rwanda and specifically for highlighting those ongoing and already implemented projects that aim at promoting the digital economy in the country. So let me now go into academia. So today we are together with Dr. Brian Muyambiri, the research associate from the University of Johannesburg. Muyambiri, just to check if you can hear me. Hello? Hello? Dr. Brian, are you there? Hello? Dr. Brian, can you hear me? Dr. Brian Muyambiri, can you hear me? Maybe he's having connection issues. So let me go to the next one. So the next one.
I can hear you.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Hi,
good.
Diana, I can hear you.
Oh, super. So we can hear you, but we can't see you. Dr. Muyambiri, if you can put on your camera. Yeah, thank you so much. So I also have a question for you, Dr. Brian. So this World Investment Report highlights the need for resilient and inclusive FDI in the digital economy. So based on your research, what structural reforms are most critical for African economies to attract long-term digital investment? Over to you, Dr. Brian.
Thank you, Dan. I think if we go through the report itself, it stressed that the digital economy is growing rapidly and its benefits remain unevenly distributed. So for African economies, I think there are a number of structural reforms that are critical. First and foremost that I saw, the one which Ms. Michelle Murungi spoke to, is about digital infrastructure expansion. We need to invest more in broadband, data centers, cloud services through blended finances and public-private partnerships. We need to prioritize universal access to reduce the urban digital divide. The next one is the regulatory harmonization and data governance, which I also saw in the Rwandan case. We need to establish predictable, transparent, and harmonized regulations across borders, maybe focusing on data protection, intellectual property, and digital taxation. And we will need to harness the benefits of the African continental free trade area. On top of that, the most critical, I think, is the enhancement in human capital and digital skills, so that at the end of the day, we have reformed educational systems that can take into account the digital revolution that we're aiming for. On top of that, we also need to have investment climate reforms, where we just simplify entry and operations for foreign investors by streamlining licensing, reducing bureaucratic hurdles. I think this was also touched on in the Uganda case when we started, which is a very good positive feedback we are getting that it's practically happening in the economy as such. The other major task is, which came from the research and also from intertwining it with the report, is the resilient financing mechanisms, to come up with resilient financing mechanisms where we need to mobilize sovereign wealth funds, pension funds, development banks to co-finance our digital projects, produce what we call risk-sharing instruments, guarantees, maybe blended finance to make digital projects viable to fragile economies. And last but not least, Diane and participants, we need to have what we call inclusive policy design, where we ensure digital FDI projects include local content requirements, SME linkages, and community-based benefits to avoid enclave-style growth, which will also, at the end of the day, I think, prioritize gender and youth inclusion in digital entrepreneurship. I think that is my my answer to your question, Diane. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Miambiri. Indeed, it's very important to have an inclusive planning to make sure that everyone is involved in the digital economy. So let us now go to Mr. Michael Ari, the CEO of the Global Initiative for Nigeria Development. So Mr. Michael, he has experience in infrastructure development, specifically for water and sanitation. And I also have a question for you, Dr. Michael. I hope you can hear me. So the report highlights a significant investment in the water and sanitation infrastructure across developing countries. So from your experience, what can help adjust this trend and ensure that essential services remain priority in Africa investment agenda? And of course, you will be responding based on your experience from Nigeria. Over to you, sir. You are muted, Michael.
Okay. Thank you very much, Diane, and thank you for allowing me to be a panelist here. Amelia has given a very good presentation as far as this is concerned, and I enjoyed the delivery from the two panelists. From your question, I'm happy that, yes, we're drifting from the digital perspective to water and sanitation. I'm the CEO of Global Initiative for Nigerian Development, and the aspect of development really boils to investment in different sectors of the economy, in which water and sanitation is a major sector that drives development in major African or developed countries. The important thing is that from the report, there's a decline in the investment perspective as far as water and sanitation is concerned. And the question will be why and what is the cause? The first thing I could see from the work we're doing in GIND is the fact that there is no strong legislation to ensure budgetary allocation for what is released on time. Especially, we have high volume of budgetary allocation from both the national and the subnational to wash-related activities. But unfortunately, the timely release of that budget is one problem. So, and then unfortunately, that's from the public perspective. The foreign direct investment that actually observe all these kind of anomalies in the country will definitely not bring their investment into Nigeria. Again, wash sanitation is adjudged as a social service. So invariably, nobody is coming to do for the Christmas in a country where you recognize the facility that is meant to be for economic growth as a social service. So invariably, there is no investor that will be coming into a country where you do not recognize the service as an economic, opportune for investment. Again, the monitoring of activities in the sector is very poor. The MIE system is not really strengthened. So invariably, nobody is encouraged to even come into the country for all of such. And then we look at the governance structure in the water sector is very, very low. Nothing has been mentioned as far as the water sector is concerned in Nigeria. All we have been listening to is the agricultural sector, the digital economy. We've been talking about the health and the rest. Unfortunately, water has not really gotten, water and sanitation has not really gotten a good buy-in by the government. So no investor will be interested in bringing its money. Now let's go into most of those investors that have been in the country over the past years. World Bank had invested in the water sector. African Development Bank had done their bit. UNDP is doing their work. And right now we have the USAID, which has been cancelled. A lot of investment has gone into Luwash in Lagos, Nigeria. That used to be Nigerian capital. But unfortunately, the grant has been cancelled by the administration of Donald Trump. So invariably, there's a lot of gap that is happening again in that wise. Now, going back to what the World Bank and the African Development Bank have done in water sector in Nigeria, the question is, has it really affected, has it really breached the gap when it comes to water sanitation aspect in the country? No. Meaning that many multilateral and development banks, as they sunk in money, a lot of funding into the water sector, but there's no result. There's no outcome, there's no impact. And that has been a more of a discouraging scourge for them. Then the money is, really diverted into another sector, because the past experience in the water sector has not been encouraging. So, and then again, the last one point I could look at is the cost recovery and the tariffs. How many people, how many of the Africans are willing to pay for water? Yes, we have other developed African countries where ATM machine is being used to generate funding. And if an investor is coming and the cost recovery is not really encouraging, I don't think any investor will definitely come. What are we doing with GIND? GIND is Global Initiative for Nigerian Development. We want to really make government work for development. And there's no development without investment. So what we're doing now is to make sure that the government look into the aspect where they are failing. For example, this kind of presentation will definitely be debriefed to the government to look at where they are failing and to see the best practice in other countries. I'll take countries from Ghana, I'll take countries from maybe Uganda, Rwanda, South Africa, Egypt, and then we just oppose it with what they are doing and look at where we have failed. We look at this report, and then we are going to look at what Nigeria can do, especially in the water aspect. Yes, we have a very great decline. And then these are the things that we do in GIND to make sure that Nigeria is in line with the development. Yes, we are so happy with what is happening in the digital economy between Nigeria and Egypt. We have taken the larger share. Same way we can do the larger share in the water sector. And that's where GIND comes in, by trying to bring in our expertise into the government and making them, forcing them, I use the word forcing them to work for development. That's my submission.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Michael, for sharing the experience of Nigeria. Indeed, investment in the water and sanitations are very critical. So very shortly, I will be opening up the floor for the participant as well for their questions. But in the meantime, you can put your questions in the chat box. So if you want to say something, please put your hand up. But in the meantime, let me go back to our panelists. Let me go back to Michelle from the Rwanda Development Board. So Michelle, could you please share the regulatory frameworks or policies that Rwanda has implemented recently to improve investment climate, especially for, of course, digital infrastructure and services? Michelle, the floor is yours. Michelle, we can't hear you. No, you are muted. Okay.
Yes, thanks. I think the host had to help unmute. If I heard you correctly, the question is about regulatory reforms.
Yes, it's about the regulatory
implemented.
reforms or policies that Rwanda implemented recently to improve the investment climate.
So we are continuously revamping our investment code and our current policies, but lately specifically to ICT and the digital economy, we've adopted some progressive regulatory reforms that really reflect some of the shifts that we're seeing in the global digital economy. And today, as highlighted in the World Investment Report, we see that investment flows are increasingly moving into AI, into fintech, into green digital technologies, and so we are also tailoring our investment and regulatory approach accordingly. Some key regulatory and strategic measures that we are looking to adopt is one example is in the drafting of the Startup Act, where we're finalizing a Startup Act that will offer legal recognition and incentives for innovative digital startups. And the aim and the goal here, what we expect is that it will boost fintech, e-commerce, and any AI-based ventures while encouraging venture capital inflows into the country. We also have a fintech regulatory sandbox through our National Bank of Rwanda. And the country really launched this sandbox to allow, again, fintech startups to test innovative financial products under the supervision of BNR, the regulator. This, we've seen that it's already attracted regional and international fintech players, which helps us position ourselves, Rwanda rather, as a fintech innovation hub. I think one of the speakers earlier alluded to data protection and privacy law. We have passed our first one rather, in 2021, which provides truly legal certainty and alignment with global standards like GDPR. And we know that this is key to attract digital service providers and data-driven companies. And so we're continuously looking at it to include some of the new technologies, as this is a really fast-paced sector. When we look at AI today and all the other emerging technologies, Rwanda is actively engaging stakeholders to design our national AI strategy as well. And the aim, again, here is to establish ethical guidelines. We know that this is also a global conversation happening around AI ethics, but also to promote AI use cases in key sectors. For us, we're looking at health, we're looking at agriculture, and to prepare the workforce through STEM education and AI training initiatives. So those are some of the policies and reforms that we're currently engaged in and looking at. When it comes to the promotion of green digital services solutions specifically, we have what we call Rwanda's ICT for Climate Action Initiative. And this is really to encourage tech-enabled responses to environmental challenges as well. I think it's Mr. Michael that mentioned that it's not getting the attention that it deserves, especially when it comes to water. And so we understand that budgetary challenges are always going to exist. And so this is a clear initiative, or rather a program that responds to the environmental challenges that we're facing. And we hope that through this, it's going to get the attention it deserves. One example for us as we think of this, of the green digital solutions, is when it comes to drone technology for precision agriculture, for example, or digital platforms that allow us to monitor forest conservation, disaster preparedness. So we're ever conscious of it and trying to have programs and initiatives in place to help us use technology to boost our ambition to become a green, carbon-free economy, or a green economy by 2050. And we hope that these reforms and strategies will demonstrate Rwanda's commitment to be at the frontier of digital transformation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michelle. So dear participants, just to let you know that the floor is open. If you have any comments, question, we still have almost 20 minutes before we close the webinar. So as I'm for other participants to request or to ask any question, let me go back to Dr. Brian Muyambili. So I have another question for you, Dr. Brian. So how can African countries better align their investment frameworks with the SDGs while remaining competitive in a global FDI landscape? Over to you, Brian.
Thank you, Dan. Given that the investment report focused on SDG-related investments like health, infrastructure, agri-food, being in crisis, but the digital economy being booming, aligning FDI with SDGs can turn Africa's latecomer status into a leapfrogging advantage. That's my thought. How do we do that? We integrate SDGs into investment policies. For example, we link incentives, tax breaks, concessional credit to sustainability benchmarks in digital and green sectors. We also can promote the twin transition, that is prioritize foreign direct investment in green digital sectors. For example, in fintech for clean energy, we talk about AI for climate smart agriculture. We also can do that by leveraging regional integration. I've already talked to this before. We take advantage of the African Continental Free Trade Area to pool markets, reduce fragmentation, and attract small-scale investors with harmonized sustainability standards. We can also strengthen domestic FDI linkages. This is by promoting technological transfer, local supplier networks, and partnerships with universities to build inclusive ecosystems. On top of that, we can engage development finance institutions and development partners by channeling concessional finance into underserved SDG sectors, using blended finance to mobilize private capital. And in addition to that, I think we can compete on stability and sustainability by moving beyond the race to the bottom tax competition, by positioning policy stability, skilled labor, and ESG compliance as Africa's competitive edge. The key takeaway at the end of the day is that to attract long-term and inclusive digital investment, Africa economies must close what we call structural gaps, harmonize regulations, align FDI with SDGs. At the end of the day, the goal is to transform foreign direct investment from being short-term capital to it being short-term capital inflows to it being a durable driver of inclusive digital transformation and sustainable development. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Brian. So I see we have one question in the chat box from Dennis Uni. We can give you the floor to explore more or to develop more your question. But before that, let me go back to Michael Ari from Nigeria. And I also have another question for you. And this question is drawing from your experience in Nigeria. So what practical strategies can help bridge the digital investment gap identified in the report? Michael? I think we are having technical issues with unmuting or muting. Colleagues, can you please help? Michael, you are muted.
Okay, now, yes,
okay, good.
yes, I think it's from your hand. Thank you, Diane. I'll be very brief on this and I'm going to go straight to the experience we have here in Nigeria. The problem has been recognized in the digital divides in Africa, and it's not only about internet access, it's about the absence of tailored platforms and ecosystem that makes grassroots initiatives visible. measurable, and bankable. So these are the problems that we too often seen, and projects are implemented without digital system that track performance, capture values, or connect communities to investment opportunities. At GINT, our grassroots experience is very easy. And one of those things we have been able to do is to develop an architectural development blueprint, which provides a replicable model for embedding digital system into grassroots infrastructure. Each project is digitally registered, monitored in real time, and reported on through dashboard access to communities, government, and investors. And this ensures accountability and transform development projects into investment data-driven access. We've done this for World Bank projects and UNICEF projects, where we use those tools to monitor their project real time. And then building ecosystem of knowledge and capacity. And we look at the digital knowledge and research hub. And at GINT, we're working to establish hubs, digital knowledge hubs in partnership with universities. We're doing that in our local environment because we work from local to global. And then we look at the technical, vocational, and educational training institutes. And these hubs focus on applied research, production of digital tools, and capacity building for local talent. Like Dr. has mentioned, capacity building is very key. And we need to take it from the younger ones for interest to bridge the digital gap that we're looking at. Then research and development platform. Through collaborative research, we have been able to design open source monitoring tools, mobile financing application, and community level data system that can serve multiple sectors. We make use of AI very well at GINT, and we have been able to use this and working with youth in making sure that this is done well. Then skill development and entrepreneurship. By training young professionals, I wouldn't want to bother myself on that because I think Doctor has mentioned much on that. We look at the digital monitoring tool. We look at so many curriculum in line with the fourth industrial revolution. These are the things that can entice and that's going to help the country or the Africans leverage on the investment that may come into the country, because you can't look at the investors when you don't have the users. Then so we look at the aspect of the user's experience. Without users' experience, you can never have investors come into any country. There must be capacity built among those that are going to be making use of those infrastructure. So we look at the data transparency for investor and we look at so many things. Now, to close the gap now, I'm going to say that to bridge the digital gap, we must go beyond fragmented projects. You know, we've talked about when Amelia was saying so much, what she could make presentation is about the big gigantic infrastructure without the human capacity. Yes, we have driven investment into the country. Do we have the capacity to manage that investment and sustain it? So we must move beyond this fragmented project and then build integrated digital ecosystem, combining data, finance, knowledge, capacity with innovation, like the architectural development blueprint that we have developed with GINT and our digital knowledge hub that encourage young ones to get familiar with innovative ideas about digital, activities. So these are the things that we are doing in GINT, and then I'm very sure that we'll be expanding it to other Africa countries. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Michael. Dennis, I don't know if you are able to unmute and make your comment. Dennis Uni? So we have two questions in the chat box actually. One is from Dennis Uni, and it was about IFCFTA. So if you can, and then elaborate more your question, Dennis Uni. Oh, you can't unmute. Or maybe it's a technical issue on our side, but let me go through the question and I will give the floor to Ameria to elaborate more on that question.
I thought they were saying I should mute. They were rather saying I should unmute. Yes, okay.
Oh, Dennis, we can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, over to you.
Yes, I was just asking. I was glad to see that South-South investment in has increased to to 40%, if I'm correct, if I remember that correctly. So I was just asking if there's if the data for African investment was captured and if it can be presented in the context of the AFCFTA, just to have a fair idea of how Africans are beginning to trade and invest among themselves. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Dennis. I believe Ameria is going to respond to the question, though she did through the chat. But we also have another question from Wase Musonge. So she's asking, how can WTO investment facilitation agreement yet to enter into force, in which more than 30 African countries are signatories, help to increase FDI's flows in Africa? So Ameria, could you please quickly respond to these two questions before we wrap up the session?
Yes, of course. Thank you so much for the interesting questions and engagement. As I said in the chat, in terms of the AFCFTA, while intra-African investment is not yet at the same scale as Asia, there are we have seen that the region is laying out the groundwork for a stronger regional digital integration. Still, the data does not show that large presence of South-South investment in the continent. Of course, there is potential for large economies and economies that are leading in the policy way, as we see here. A challenge with the data is also that it's difficult to differentiate whether this investment comes from an African country or this economy is a subsidiary of an European or American or Chinese multinational. So in short, still we cannot show a trend, but we have seen some countries that might sound interesting because it might not be the usual large economy like Djibouti, investing in some other countries, but this is a subsidiary. It's not an idiosyncratic investment coming from the country. So still we are not there yet, but I believe that through the AFCFTA protocol, the foundations have been laid out, as I said, to be a catalyst for more South-South investment in the region. The question about the investment facilitation for development agreement that has been concluded, but it's not part yet of the WTO legal architecture, of course is important, and of course it can help because especially the digital provisions of the agreement. In short, we can see that it can help improving transparency and predictability, issues that have been discussed by different panelists today. It can help to facilitate intra-Africa investment and to channel the global investment through intra-African means, especially because it will help to streamline investment-related processes, especially if through the investment protocols of the AFCFTA. Will enhance SMEs participation. The playbook for investment facilitation is normally for large multinationals. The implementation of the agreement will help to simplify procedures and provide better access to information and to lower entry barriers for SMEs, and in general can promote investment for sustainable development. So all in all, it's a practical framework. Still is yet to be integrated. As it was mentioned, more than 30 countries in Africa are signed out of the 126, 27 that have signed the agreement. So we at UNCTAD are committed to help countries, and we have technical assistance in this regard, working together with WTO and other partners. Over to you, Diane.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Ameria. So we are now wrapping up our session. I'm not sure if the CEO of GIPC is still on the call. Just to give him the floor, Mr. Simon, I'm not sure if he's still there. Just one sentence.
He left. No, he left. He excused himself. He had to move on to another commitment.
Okay, good. So we are now wrapping up our session. Just one sentence to our panelists for their closing remarks. Let's start with Mulungi. Michelle, if she's still on the call. One sentence to close. Michelle, can you unmute yourself? Okay,
hello,
good.
can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Oh, great. So in closing, I really wanted to thank you and UNCTAD for this wonderful discussion. Ms. Melia for your presentation. It's really insightful. And I couldn't, close without inviting everyone on the call today to reach out to us at RDB. This is really the digital economy is quite a space or a sector that's full of opportunities on the continent, in Rwanda. And so would love to engage with everybody who has interest in that sector. And really, really big thanks to the team for this. The reports, they're very insightful. They often guide us and help us search some of the research that we also do internally. So this is a wonderful opportunity for us to have a dialogue around some of the trends when it comes to FDI. So thank you again. Thank you, everybody, all the panelists. Pleasure meeting everyone. And I invite you to visit Rwanda and to come speak to us about the investment opportunities.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you also for joining our session. Mr. Brian, over to you for the closing. One sentence for the closing. Brian, if you are still here. Okay, over to you.
I'm still here, Dan. Thank you so much for the webinar and for giving me this opportunity to discuss something that I'm always looking through in front of documents and discussing with my fellow academics. For further engagement, anyone and all the participants can get in touch with me through here in Botswana and South Africa where I'm based. But at the end of the day, I just want to say that when it comes to investments, the one sentence that I can just say is that Africa's future, turning big deals into broad, sustainable and inclusive investment flows at the end of the day. And thank you once again. Thank you, Dan.
Thanks, Dr. Miambili. Thanks for the closing remarks. And it was a pleasure having you on this webinar. So over to you, Michael, for the closing in one sentence, please. You are muted. Try to unmute. Okay.
Yes, no, thank you, Diane. Thanks for the opportunity. Thanks for other panelists. They've spoken so well. Being the only one speaking about WASH, I wish to just ask that this kind of initiative and idea is spread towards all the African policy makers to see water as a very good initiative for development. Without water, there can't be any development, reasonable development. If you look at all the developed countries, it's been water sanitation and hygiene. So I'm imploring all the listeners to please, let's bring it to the policymakers that WASH is very, very good for development. So thank you for this opportunity. Thank you, Amelia, and thank you for everyone listening. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Michael. It was a pleasure having you on the call as well. So now let us close the session. Let me invite Maria Santos Polino for the closing remarks. After her remarks, I really want to ask each one of you to put on your camera so that we can take a group photo. Over to you, Maria.
Thank you so much. So I will thank all the panelists for their fantastic insights. I will be reaching out to you. We will be reaching out to you as we shape our continuous work on these issues on an investment in sustainable development. I don't want to repeat myself, but I heard from you and I'm taking this message home. As we said, that realizing the potential for Africa will require coordinated efforts to improve infrastructure, physical and human. We need human capital, we need the physical infrastructure, we need to harmonize regulations, we need to promote investment and research and development. And in all this, the government cannot do it alone, private sector cannot do it alone. We need public-private partnerships. Our work underscores the importance of aligning investment strategies with development priorities. We will continue working on that. On the issue of new technologies, digital technologies, artificial intelligence, Africa is a locus of excellence, not only for infrastructure, but also for the data that it can provide. In numerous number of languages, the cultural differences are an asset in addition to natural resources. We have to worry about environmental impact and economic impact, but there are pockets of opportunities for growth especially in the delivery of services and in market impact. Again, thank you to my colleagues in Addis, to my team at UNCTAD for making this happening, and I look forward to continue the conversation with you all.
Thank you all. Thank you all. We are looking forward to see you again in our upcoming webinars. Thank you for your contributions. Just put on your camera for a group photo. Yes. That's it. Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a nice day.
Thank you so much, Diane, and thank you, colleagues.
All. See you.
Thank you to all the speakers. Thank you. Bye.